All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here before it's officially time to go. Spinning wheels, still spinning, spinning, 1 and 2. Welcome in. It is Tuesday night, 6:02 Mountain Time. The rosters are set for 53-man, and it's time for an episode of Building the Broncos, man, our namesake, the day like today. I am Nick Kendall, and joined by, as always, for these Tuesday night shows over at Mile High Huddle, Carl Dumler. Carl, how you doing, man? That the beard is looking certain it's coming through there pretty good after the monkey tail.
Yeah, no, it's coming along. The part right here is turning a little more gray, whitish than I like to admit. You know,
It's
those mid-30s, they hit you hard.
Yeah.
Someday you'll get there. But no, it's good to be back. And, I appreciate Scott subbing in for me last week with some family things going on. And everybody's healthy finally. So we're good there. And hopefully the Broncos looking like a pretty healthy roster. Like I said, cutting down, I think somebody in the comments said that's why they call it an initial 53 roster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's right. You know, there's going to be plenty of changes coming. I think even George Payton kind of talked about it, that they're scouting through like 1,000 players. They have 1,000 reports on players that they're going to be looking through tonight to see who they're going to put in waiver requests for, which veterans are you going to be trying to talk to come in here to Denver, all those kind of things. So, as I would hate to be those guys that are like that 51 through 53, because you get that initial, like, I made it, and now you're gone.
Yeah. Typically, you see the 53, and I was kind of joking about it with Scott today. The 53-man roster is set, but then you have a lot of movement in you mentioned 51 through 53, 49, like the back four, typically rotating throughout the season as it is, but a lot of changes in Broncos country, and hopefully for the better, going from some losing seasons to a winning season. And now that a winning season has officially returned, and with the regular season just about here, there are plenty of opportunities to win over at MyBookie. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or a first-time bettor, MyBookie gets you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus up to $1,000. It's simple. Follow the link in the show description and sign up using our promo code Wilson22 on your first deposit, and you'll instantly double your money with MyBookie. It's simple. A $250 deposit puts $500 into your account, and you can use your funds to bet on as many individual games, contests, or props as you want. So make sure you're looking here. I think the Broncos spread right now is about 4.5 for the Seattle game. You want to check that out. And seems like the line is starting to get a little bit more in favor to the Broncos with the Geno Smith announcement. So maybe you want to cash in that now, because it might get even further away from the Broncos line. A win's a win in my book, but maybe a little bit of a double win there if you bet on the Broncos to cover that spread. Bet on team win totals, predict the Super Bowl winner, or use the MyBookie prop builder to give yourself an edge you need to secure the bag this year. Again, use code Wilson2022 when you sign up and get double your deposit. Follow the link in the notes and click to join now. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. So yeah, let's now that that's out of the way, we got to say hello to some folks. Andrew Lampy coming in here saying hello. Hello to you, Andrew Lampy. Hope you're doing well. Still enjoying the new picture. Throwing me off here, but of course, recognize the name. Good afternoon to you. We also got Phil coming in. Phil, feels like it's been a second. I know I've been crazy off on like backpacking trips and whatnot, but Phil saying hello, Carl, Nick, and Scott. Welcome back, Carl. Yeah, Carl, welcome back. Now, what do you guys think about the defensive back Guidry and the defensive tackle Watkins? Do you have any idea who Phil's talking about here, or is there just a couple of these guys that were released with this last name? Phil, you're going to need to give me more than this. I'm not sure which players you're talking about. There's so many players the Broncos moved on from. I didn't see every single player every team released.
Right. I mean, there's, I think, 800 names that were released today or something like that, or over the last couple of weeks. So it's kind of hard to keep track of all of them. So yeah, if you can give us first names, that might help out a little bit. And the hard part is, like, we haven't got to watch all these guys. And so what we know of them, a lot of them are what we saw in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're kind of trying to have to, what did they look like in preseason? I don't know. Maybe in the NFL, it just was too big of a picture for them and they just couldn't quite make it work. And this is why a lot of times with teams, you have to kind of remember, I know everybody's like, oh, I can't believe we lost this player and this player and this player, and some team's going to pick them up. Well, there's usually only about 2 or 3 players from each team that kind of switches. I think if I remember right. So per team, I should say.
Yeah.
Or 3%. I think that's what it is, of actual players that get cut end up on a different roster. So just keep that in mind, that as much as it is hard to say goodbye to some of these guys, there's a really good chance most of them end up on the practice squad.
Yeah. And just looking up Guidry cornerback. There's Javelin Guidry for the Jets, 5'9", 192. Haven't watched him. 24-year-olds with the Jets. Jets secondary, not great. So I don't know. I'm really looking more for a boundary cornerback and not having watched him at all, being completely honest. 5'9" screams more slot, which I don't think the Broncos need as much. Defensive lineman Watkins, that makes me think of maybe Carlos Watkins. And looking that up today, I see the Colts moved on from Carlos Watkins. A little bit older from the 2017 draft class. Love the arm length, 34 and 5/8. But again, been released. Not a player that probably moving the needles. I remember watching him at Clemson. He was fine, more of a body than anything. But hey, definitely somebody that Broncos might look at because the defensive line room right now is a little thin. But we'll get into that because some of it is just some of the movements going on this season. And a lot of teams are kind of doing this there. It's a false 53 right now because you have some guys that are going to be back once the Broncos move some players on IR. But we'll get all into that, guys. First, we got to say hello to Miguel coming in here saying, "Sup, fellas? What was your surprise moves?" Mine was Cooper making the team. I don't know why, just is. At first, I would say my surprise move was Mike Purcell being moved on from, considering he was protected all throughout preseason. They could have moved on from him a while ago to save that money. And then finding out a little bit later, it's more of a procedural move where Purcell, along with tight end Eric Tomlinson, agreed to come back for the exact same contract that they're going on. They're not losing any money. But right now they are off the roster, soon to be brought back because the Broncos are keeping the likes of Michael Ojemudia, cornerback, and tight end Greg Dulcich on the 53-man roster, and then moving them to the short-term IR, which means they can be back by week 5.
Yeah, I guess actual surprise move for me would be a little bit of Virgil making it over a couple of the other guys at wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of that is, again, you look at who's most likely to get taken by somebody else. Well, Virgil has that high end because of that speed. I mean, every team's looking for speed. And if you don't have one of those kind of guys that can get down the field in a hurry, you're going to try to find that if that hits the market. I mean, this is one of those guys. I'm trying to remember. I think he was on, what's his name? You know him, the guy that does the freaks list.
Bruce Feldman.
He was on there 3 times, if I remember right. And just because this guy is just, I mean, he's got Olympic kind of speed. I think 10.29, 100-meter dash. That's ridiculous. So he's one of the fastest people in the NFL. And 4.3 something in his 40 time. So I think the Broncos were kind of going, this is the guy that everybody's going to want to get. You know, there's a lot of Seth Williams out there. There's a lot of the Johnsons out there that I think you could probably look at 20 other guys and say, it's pretty close. We don't need this guy. But Virgil, he's got something different.
Yeah, and NFLDraftBuzz.com from Jalen Virgil's pro day at Appalachian State has him running at a 4.48. So much more of a long speed, even longer speed with the 100-meter dash. But still, interesting to see. We got Watkins from Dallas and Guidry from Jets. Not sure about either of them. If they come in, I'll definitely put in the work on them. But if it was Carlos Watkins, who's released from the Colts, I believe, today, maybe a little more interest because I definitely watched him at Clemson and love that arm length. They definitely need some more mass and length along that defensive line. Don't have much length on the interior right now. Tyler coming in here with a 4.99 super saying, "Good evening, gents. I'm sad about Malik Reed. We traded a player for us and a 7th for a 6th. Carl, I'll give you the floor on this one."
Yeah, it was pretty much the room was really deep. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't have quite the high end talent that you kind of like. But when you're looking at a Malik Reed, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, you know, a lot of those guys are real close in their abilities. And you're kind of going, okay, well, we can't keep them all. So we got to get rid of at least one of them. Is there any way we can get any kind of trade value? Well, the guy that has the most value is Malik Reed because he's done it in the league. He's started a few games. He's got obviously tons of snaps out there. And so that's one of those guys you can make a call and other NFL teams are going to go, yeah, we know that guy. We like him. We'd love him for our depth. And while it stinks, yes, I wish they got a little bit more capital. I wish they didn't have to give up the 7th to get the 6th because I kind of want quantity. You know, sometimes that quantity over quality can actually be a good thing in the draft. But at the same time, it's at least something. Instead of either having to cut the guy or cut somebody else, you're at least getting something back for it. And and plus the other thing that you get with it is you get some cap space as well. You know, because he was on that restricted free agent tag, and the Broncos, they're going to need as much cap space as they can get. I know that George Payton was talking about the punter battle and saying that finances had nothing to do with this. Come on. We know that there was at least a little bit of that playing into this.
Yeah, it's a tiebreaker.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if it's close, we're going to look at the money, say who's cheaper. And, you've got Bradley Chubb, Draymond Jones, obviously Russell Wilson. All three of those guys are going to demand pretty darn high contracts. And so every little bit helps if you can make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how it plays out, and just kind of going through some of the names here that have been released today. But I guess my biggest surprise was the Broncos moving on from Josh Johnson in favor of Brett Rippon. Sounds like the Broncos are still not pretty content with their quarterback room, even with Brett Rippon there. So they might make a move there still at that position and hoping to bring Josh Johnson back to the practice squad now that there's not a years in the league rule or limit for the practice squad. The Broncos waived a lot of players, obviously McTelvin Najim, former 3rd round pick, Bailey on the offensive line, who did not look very good. Jonathan Harris, defensive line, didn't look very good. Faion Hicks, the only draft pick from this last draft class that did not make the team. We'll see if he's back in the practice squad. Kendall Hinton, Hall of Famer. A little bit sad to see him gone, but he's out. Johnson, the offensive line. Kongbo on the outside linebacker spot. Mauga, inside linebacker. McMillan, cornerback. Natani Moody, another surprise guard. Nice, offensive line. Zigbo, running back. Parham, tight end. J.R. Reed, safety. Sterling Shepard. No, it's Shepard, wide receiver. Seth Williams, wide receiver. And Brandon Johnson with the injury. And then, of course, the trade of Malik Reed. So a rundown there of the names. And we're going to get to some more here. Breaking down the list and some of the procedural moves we talked about. But Cody W coming in with a $2 super saying, is Hamler now the fastest player in the AFC West? What do you think here, Carl?
Right now, no.
Who is then?
Well, part of this is because he's still coming back from injury.
Okay.
Like
right now,
he looked good in this last game, but you can tell he's not quite 100%. Especially that interception in the end zone. You could tell he wasn't quite making the quick cuts that we've seen in the past, which that's not the long speed side of things. I mean, Broncos might have it in their other guy that just made the roster there.
Jalen Virgil.
Yeah, Jalen Virgil might be that guy. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking the 40, the 100, Broncos have the fastest guy in the NFL. 40, Sky Moore can move. Who's that other wide receiver that they got from the Packers?
Martez Valdez-Scantling. Mecole Hardman's faster than both of them.
That's true. I'm trying to think of the other rosters. Raiders.
We always think wide receivers, but cornerbacks too, man. Cornerbacks
That's true.
Fly.
That is true.
We'll rack our banks, but I'm going to go just yes. KJ Hamler fastest. KJ Hamler faster than Jalen Virgil. Virgil had a really good 100-meter yard dash, but he almost ran up 4.5 40 at Appalachian State. Even at the 4.4, Hamler was reporting, knocking on the door on the 4.2s. So Hamler, when healthy, is probably the fastest guy in the AFC West. Michaela Parker coming in saying, hi, family. Hi, Michaela. I love the picture of you rocking that 88 jersey. Always good to see some DT support out here, and hope you're doing well. We also have John saying he was bummed that the Broncos took Virgil over Williams. Dumb move. What do you think, Carl? You're more of the wide receiver guy than I am. Why would the Broncos take Jalen Virgil over Seth Williams, who kind of showed on late, especially in that Vikings game?
Yeah, I mean, there might not be a bigger fan of Seth Williams than me right now. Like one of the biggest things that I look for is what do they do from year 1 to year 2? Can they show that sign that they're actually working at this, getting better? Seth Williams took leaps and bounds compared to what he was his rookie year. Like rookie year, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy does not belong in the NFL. He's slow. He's not even doing great jumping up, catching the ball. Like that was supposed to be his big thing is he's a jump ball kind of wide receiver. This year, he slimmed down a little bit. He's good out of his breaks. Like he's really worked at his game. And I thought he looked like a legit NFL wide receiver. And I really wanted him in part because with Tim Patrick down, Cortland Sutton goes down. You don't really have a whole lot of big wide receivers now. I mean, Tyree Cleveland's got a little bit of size, but I don't really like him for the offense. He's more of a special teams guy. And so I just kind of wanted that X receiver that could just come in just in case Cortland Sutton went down. But like I said, Virgil he's got that X factor because he has that long speed. He can win. He can do special teams. He can be a returner if you need him for that. If Montrell Williams has some kind of injury that pops up, or Montrell Washington, sorry, then you have that possibility that you have another returner that can come in and do really well. He didn't do great in preseason with special teams, but he did show that ability in college. And so I think for that, again, the Broncos looked at it and said, some team is going to want this speed. We got to keep him on our 53. And I don't think he'll be one that remains on the 53. I think eventually he'll go to the practice squad, but at least for right now, they wanted to protect him.
Yeah. For me, it comes down to Jalen Virgil, much better gunner on this team. So we'll see what happens in that regard. We also have, Mike Mile High Mike saying Seth Williams should have made the team. What a mistake. I'm not wringing my hands too much about the back end of the roster wide receivers because you see these guys pop up in the league. There's probably no position, especially when you're talking about back end of the depth chart positions as a wide receiver in the league. I mean, Trinity Benson was released, and the Broncos, a lot of Broncos fans last year were really pissed that the Broncos traded him for a 5th-round pick and gave up Benson in a 7. You can find those wide receivers every year. And Seth Williams, he did have a solid preseason, but not enough where I'm feeling upset that he was moved on from. If you want to find a Seth Williams, you can probably find one an equivalent on the waiver wire right now. So we'll see how it plays out. And I'm hoping that he makes it back to the practice squad though, because I do like to keep the drafted guys in here that we've been following with some rapport on and everything like that. We also got Diamond Rattler coming in saying, did they already talk about the new football they're using for Thursday night football games? I don't know anything about this. Do you know anything about this, Carl? They're using a different football?
Russell Wilson did a video recently where he was showing that they have an Amazon football since Amazon does the Thursday night football games. And he's showing the difference in throwing them compared to a regular NFL football. He took that Amazon football and it was kind of like that old Nerf, like John Elway, where he could throw it 100 yards with nothing. It just felt like that. I mean, he hit the dummy and the dummy just went flying across the field because he could throw it so hard. And I think it was just a joke. I don't think that's real. I can't see how they would allow them to change up the game or change up the ball for just Thursday night football games. So yeah, Peter Johnson saying surely the new football is a joke. Yeah, it's got to be. They would not change that kind of thing because I mean that'd be crazy to kind of watch in a game. Wide receivers having to adjust to a whole new football, quarterbacks having to adjust. They would not do that because it would turn into bad football.
Yep, and Patrick Sertan, or Cody W coming in, Patrick Sertan, fan of the show, coming in and saying holds the fastest speed for a defense in the last 5 years. Yeah, I think it was that GPS tracker where he returned that pick 6. Patrick Sertan definitely got some long speed. He's definitely a fast player as well. Coming out of the draft, I didn't think he was the quickest burst player off the line of scrimmage, but I mean, God, his technique is so good that you don't even have to worry about that much. Hell of a player. Jamie coming in saying, hello, Broncos country. Going to be interesting to see who the Broncos claim off waivers and who gets the axe. I think that the Broncos are going to be looking for specifically the cornerback position. That's the one that stands out to me. Players heading towards the IR. We already mentioned it. The short-term IR. Michael Ojemudia, the team's first backup boundary cornerback behind the, let's just call it as it is, injury-prone Ronald Darby, who has only had one healthy year in his entire career, and Patrick Sertan, which please don't let him get injured. So right now it's Michael Ojemudia. If Ojemudia goes down, if Darby goes down, even though Ojemudia had struggled somewhat in preseason and had an injury last year, you are really in trouble at the cornerback position. So I would be shocked if the Broncos did not make a move yet at the boundary cornerback spot. Quan Williams, more of a slot guy. Damari Mathis, not ready to trust him as a primary boundary guy, especially the first boundary guy off the bench. They need another body there.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, Ojemudia is going to have to miss the first 4 games anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be that thin at that position. Yeah. And we've seen in the past, the Broncos have struggled with their cornerbacks staying healthy. Like I said, Darby's already had injury history. Quan Williams hasn't always been healthy. And so you want to get a few more bodies possibly in there just to see what you can bring in. We got BX Bronco Jedi coming in saying, surprise Purcell was cut. It was a little bit of surprise just in the fact they didn't play him all preseason. So you kind of thought this guy's a lock to make the roster, but you said it earlier. This was really just kind of a move to be able to put those other guys on short-term IR. So the way it works is if you want to put a player on short-term IR, they have to be on the initial 53-man roster, which really stinks because then that means you're losing a couple players that otherwise would have been on the roster. But so the Broncos thought, hey, the smart thing to do is cut these veterans that nobody else is going to take and tell the veterans, we're going to bring you back at that exact same contract that we just cut you from. And so then you're not risking anything at that point. You're not risking losing a player that you would rather keep on your roster. So Purcell will be back. There's really no question about that. The Broncos want him back. He wants to be back, and he'll be a Denver Bronco this year.
Yeah. Nope, absolutely. Purcell and shout out to Purcell and Eric Tomlinson both, be agreeing to keep with the deal. I don't know how this is legal to do that. Like we're releasing you, but we're not really releasing you. You still keep the guaranteed money. We're just going to give you that same base salary right back as soon as we move these guys to the R. It's just procedural. I don't know, just moving one thing to a bucket until this other bucket. It's like you can only hold 53 marbles in this one bucket. So you move 2 into this bucket right now, and you have an IR bucket that you can't put anything in until tomorrow. Take those 2 marbles out, put the other 2 in, you're back to 53. So expect that to happen quickly. No worries about that. And we also I want to talk a little bit more about the Malik Reed trade as well. So the Broncos getting another draft pick back. Obviously, they didn't get more quantity, but a 6th-round pick. Guess what, Carl? You said you wanted more numbers. Obviously, I would have rather just gotten the 6th-round pick without having to give it the 7. But if you want more picks, guess what? That 6th-round pick can easily turn into 2 7th-round picks next year if you are looking for that volume. Malik Reed, though, you kind of touched on it already. You saved $2.4 million against the cap this season. He only had 1 year left of control compared to all your other edge rushers outside of Bradley Chubb, who's way better and more valuable. That would have more years of control left. Nick Bonito, 4 years of control. Baron Browning, 3 years of control. Jonathan Cooper, 3 years of control. Aaron Patrick, a much better special teams contributor. So just the roster math-wise, it didn't make sense to keep Malik Reed. I'm happy the Broncos at all were able to get draft capital for him and make that move, even if it does seem negligible. The Broncos now have 2 3s, a 4, a 5, and a 6 next year, if I'm not mistaken. I think they don't have 2 6. I think it's 2 3s, one of the 3s from the Colts, a 4, 5, and 6.
I think you're right.
Yeah. EJ coming in. Good evening, Nick and Carl in Broncos Country. Good to see you. Kathy also in the house saying, hi, Carl and Nick. Bittersweet day for Broncos Country. It is, but it's also an exciting day. And see, John's in here. Why do we keep Virgil over Hinton or Williams? I think, like Carl said, Virgil still probably ends up on the practice squad at some point, but if not, I think the calling card here is special teams. Virgil is a much better gunner, and also Tyree Cleveland is still floating around there. We'll see what happens with him. He makes the original 53. Wouldn't be shocked if he ends up on the short-term IR as well.
He's probably the one that I struggled with the most of making the 53-man roster. Just he missed most of training camp. Mm-hmm. And so this is pretty much we're throwing a bone to our special teams coordinator. He really loves this guy, thinks that he's going to be a star for special teams. And even though we haven't got to see that as much on the field, like with our own eyes, yes, they've got news from his last couple of years here with Denver, but and they've got film from last year of him being on the field sometimes. But still, it's one of those, when you miss that much time, I just have trouble keeping him over some of these young guys that I thought really did well. Like, I think they played well enough to make a roster. And now you're keeping a guy that I don't think really earned his spot per se, but sometimes that reputation matters. And like I said, if he can help you on special teams, that's what you want with those back end wide receivers. That's what's more important than their ability to help on the offense. But that's hard for me because like I said, I want these guys that can maybe replace starters down the road. And I don't see Tyree Cleveland becoming this great wide receiver that you can sit there and look at Tim Patrick next year and go, I think we're good without you. We got Tyree Cleveland. Not saying Seth Williams is quite to that level, but I feel like he has more upside to become that kind of receiver for me.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all also if the Broncos brought another wide receiver for the back end of the roster. I saw Tyler Johnson was waived from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Would be very interested in him. Probably a few other names there that I haven't yet combed through the entire list of the NFL waves sorted by position. But name that sticks out to me. Will he get all the way to the Broncos at number 9 on the waiver wire? Especially if the Bears needing wide receiver help. I don't know. We'll find out. But cornerback, wide receiver, maybe tight end, maybe defensive line. Those are the spots I'd be looking at right now, but definitely cornerback. Yep. Roy Osborne coming in saying, hey there, Nick and Carl and Scott. Do you guys think that the Moody release was a surprise? The Moody release was a tad bit of a surprise for me, but Carl, what do you think? Was it a surprise for you?
Not completely. When I was looking at the numbers for the offensive line, he just seemed to be the odd man out. Part of that being he just doesn't have the versatility that you like for your backup offensive lineman. It's either he's going to be the starter or he's not on the roster kind of thing. He really loved playing right guard, if I remember right, or was it left guard? I can't remember which one.
I think it was left guard.
Left guard. Well, you've already got your starter there in Reisner. and he didn't have that versatility to switch over and do well. And he's never played center. So when you got guys like Graham Glasgow that has played all three positions, you know, you got your rookie player that you kind of want to keep around, Wattenberg, that you don't want to lose if it hits the open market. It just seemed like Moody was the guy on the way out. And I also kind of questioned his fit in this system. You know, he's a big guy. He's a powerful guy. He wants to get downhill and knock people off their socks. Not really that much of the horizontal kind of guy. He lost some weight from what I understand, but hey, Christian Hernandez, thank you so much for the stars there and the hearts. Really appreciate that. But yeah, Moody, like I said, I just didn't think he was quite the perfect fit for what the Broncos were wanting here.
Yep. Yeah, Moody had not historically short arm length, but I think he was like right around 32 inches, which I've been told that with the Peyton regime, the arm length doesn't just matter for the interior tackle position and the interior offensive line as well. They want some guys with some length there for cutoffs and bringing in and paying guys and drafting guys. And Moody also, the injury kind of doomed him here, missed a lot of time and just not as versatile. The guy who's just a pure guard, that's going to put you behind the ball, in my opinion, when you have Graham Glasgow, who has center position. Also, Glasgow's contract makes it where he's much harder to move on from. You don't get much cap savings from moving on from him and more dead cap in reality. And also can't play center. Luke Wattenberg, same thing. Center, guard versatility. Don't see that with Moody, and comes back to the years of control. Moody would have 2 years left of control. Luke Wattenberg, the Broncos traded up for in the 5th round this year. 4 years of control left. That matters. A younger player, more upside. Also part of this regime. We saw a lot of Peyton and this front office moving on from draft picks that were of the Elway front office regime, which again, is that Peyton, being petty or anything? No, of course not. Picking his guys because that was his evaluation, but also those are fresher guys on the roster, more years of roster control, just kind of the nature of it. Cody W coming in and giving the $2 saying, what's our cap space looking like? Let me see. The Broncos had about, 12 million, moved on from some guys. I'm guessing they're probably around 16 right now, 14 or 16. I'm sure that with all the moves that happened today, all the websites that have that information are probably not updated yet. And if they are, that's unbelievable. But good for them. But I would guess probably somewhere around 14 to, let's go 14 to 18, because I said 16. 14 to 18 makes the most sense to me.
Okay. Well, Over the Cap has us at 14.6 million or something like that.
Okay. Not a bad guess. And then Spot Rack. Either way.
Trying to see. Yeah, I'm just trying to see if they still have some of the old players on there. I don't see any. Well, now they've updated it to 16.7 million.
But Purcell and Tomlinson are going to be back for the same contracts. And if they're not on there right now, then that's going to change that math again. So not a big deal. We got Jamie coming in saying, is Fant starting up in Seattle? Yes, he is. He's their tight end one. They also brought back Disley as well. We'll see if they're running a lot more 12 personnel this season, but we'll see how it plays out there for them. We also have Andy Schrant coming in and said, I never heard up until now the Broncos were planning to hold just 2 quarterbacks. Carl, do you know the last time the Broncos had 3 quarterbacks on their roster?
Well, would have
on
been
their active roster.
Did they have 3 last year?
No.
Or was Rip? Okay. It'd been the year before that then.
I think they brought up guys from the practice squad. I think the last time maybe I'm thinking that they specifically went into the year with 3. But the last time I can remember the Broncos having 3 active, healthy quarterbacks on the 53-man roster to start the season was 2015. Peyton Manning, Brock Osweiler, Trevor Siemian. And since then, I cannot remember a time the Broncos have had more than 2 active quarterbacks on the roster. So will be interesting to see. We got Travis coming in here. Travis always coming in with support saying, hello, fellas. Been a while. Still reading your articles and, of course, paying attention to our Broncos. I'm Denver Broncos for life. Good to hear that, Travis. Hope things are going well out there in Arkansas. I know you're starting to get excited for our collective Iowa Hawkeyes this season. Just everybody. I'm assuming your Iowa Hawkeye fandom in the chat now. You have no choice. We need you. We got Mark Schrader coming in saying, evening, guys. Evening to you, Mark. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you this morning. Hope you had a great day and good evening.
Yeah. Appreciate you all tuning in here today. As like I said, I think someone said earlier, the bittersweet day. Mm-hmm. It's fun that you get to see who the 53-man roster is going to be. And it means obviously football's that much closer. We're only a couple weeks away. Well, I think, is it next Thursday is the first game?
Yep.
And then the Broncos play obviously that Monday.
Rams Bills Thursday.
Ooh, that's going to be
chef kiss.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to see. But yeah, so it just means football's that much closer. We had week 0 in college football this last Saturday, getting to watch Northwestern take it to Nebraska. Sorry for any Nebraska fans in the chat. But yeah, so it's tough to see these guys that, like I said, I've gotten attached to some of these guys. I really do love Seth Williams, love his game. He's one of them that I really wanted to see make this roster. And I kind of loved what J.R. Reed was bringing to the table the last couple games. I thought he was showing well in his run support coming up, making some big hits. And then I really liked Azigbo this last game. And I think some of these guys, they are going to make that practice squad. So it's not like we're saying goodbye or anything like that. Most of them will be back here anyway. But it's still tough to see these guys have some of those dreams kind of go down the tube a little bit. And I loved, they talked to Peyton and a couple of the other guys in the front office, and they said, well, what do you tell these guys when they're being cut? We tell them, look at these players that have been cut multiple times that now are veterans that are sticking on rosters. Look what they went through. Like, they just stuck with it. They realized they had the game. They just need to work on some things. And so for a lot of these guys, again, they just needed another year, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we had a comment in here coming in. Any surprise guys that made the team? And I have Jay Valentine coming in saying one that I'm surprised made the team. And this again probably speaks to the concerns of the cornerback position, in my opinion. Saying Bassey, and then followed by Yuck. Yeah, I mean, he's a pure slot cornerback, solid tackler, not a lot of speed to cover crossers, which, God, you're going to be hit with that consistently in the AFC West, and not keeping up with slot fades either. But Broncos back end of the cornerback position is highly questionable. Luckily, they do have one superstar cornerback in Patrick Surtain, which should help that room tremendously. But the Broncos are not alone. If you look across the AFC West, I guess outside of the Chargers, who have okay depth at the position, assuming J.C. Jackson comes back somewhat healthy, the rest of the division's cornerback rooms are very much lacking, especially the Raiders today trading Trayvon Mullen to the Cardinals. Man, what a horrible defense that Raiders will have outside the edge position. I would be pretty shocked if they don't finish last. And also, everyone, let's take a moment to laugh at the Raiders. Another first-round pick down the drain. Maybe they should just start trading all their first-round picks because they don't use them for anything good. Alex Leatherwood, they called 31 teams. 31 teams said, I'll pass, according to Ian Rappaport. And Alex Leatherwood has been waived for first-round pick from just the 2021 draft.
Now, I think if he didn't have the contract coming with him, I think there's probably a chance that a team would have maybe made a trade like a 7th-round pick. But I think he's owed something like $5.9 million this year. And he's going to be like a swing tackle, or he's going to be a depth guy. You don't pay $6 million to a depth guy. And so it doesn't surprise me one bit that all 31 teams said no to him. Well, really all 32, because then Raiders are like, we don't even want him.
Yeah.
And so it's tough for that kid. I think when we were watching that draft, we all kind of laughed a little bit. He was worth a draft pick for sure. But first-round draft pick, I don't think any of us were like, no, I don't think he was on any of our boards for the first round. But hey, Raiders will Raider. And like I said, the Mullins move, man, I had a few Raiders fans because I made a comment about it. They're like, he wasn't that good. I'm like, well, your whole room is not very good. Like he was kind of the best piece of crap in a room full of poop.
Worst crap.
Yeah, kind of thing. I got to be careful what I say there, I guess. But yeah, so it's kind of surprising to see them make some of these moves and really hurt their roster. I just look at it and I say they're very top heavy compared to the rest of the division. They got these great players, obviously, that are just top of their positions. And then a lot of unknown players that just kind of make you go, who?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark Schrader coming to the support saying, do you guys think that Seth Williams will be on the practice squad? I do think they'll bring Seth Williams back to the practice squad unless another team picks him up. But if there's any position that you can sneak through the waiver wire and pick back up, it is the back end of the roster wide receivers. So I do think that Seth Williams makes it back on the practice squad for the Broncos.
Yep, I do too.
We got the notorious GLP coming in. Gary Leeds Palmer saying, good afternoon, Carl, Nick, and Scott. Go Broncos. Let's ride. Good to see you, Gary. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming and double dipping today, morning and evening. We appreciate you. Hope you had a great Tuesday. God, what day of the week is it? It's Tuesday. So hope you're having a good one. We got Visionary coming. I don't recognize Visionary Dell 618 with a couple ideas here saying the Broncos should trade for Jalen Reagor. They need speed. Speed kills in the open field. Then he also says grab Devin Bush from the Steelers. Steelers don't seem to be happy with him. My issue is that the Broncos are dealing at such a deficit when it comes to draft picks right now that I don't think you're going to see any moves that involve anything besides maybe even that 6th-round pick you gave up this year, that kind of guy. And I think probably for those former first-round picks, it's probably going to cost a little more to get them, even though those guys haven't lived up to their draft status. So probably not going to happen. The Broncos are in a different, and I totally get it because Broncos fans, the last few seasons, we've had like so much excess draft capital thanks to trading away players when we were dead in the water at the midseason deadline, thanks to the compensatory picks that the Broncos were getting. This team right now is in a totally different spot because of the Russell Wilson trade, for better and for not for worse, but different. Definitely for better because you'd rather have the quarterback, but you don't have the value draft capital. You don't have the volume draft capital. So those kind of moves, you don't have, doesn't seem like you're in a position to make those kind of spots.
Right. And for me, I'm only trading for a guy that I feel like can actually be a big time contributor. Both those guys would be depth moves for me. Devin Bush, I just don't see him as a starter in this league right now. The guy is constantly out of position. I was watching some games with Schobert last year, and he has Devin Bush next to him. Like Devin Bush was like almost blocking Schobert from being able to go make a move, go make a play, because he just would get stuck there. Like he's an athletic player, but he doesn't know how to use that athleticism because he doesn't have the instincts. And it's one of those plays where I think of, the Broncos were ready to take him in that draft before they got the call from the Steelers to trade back. And I just look at it and go, sometimes, other teams save you from making a stupid mistake. The Broncos were saved from making a stupid mistake that draft. And so unless he hits the open market and the Steelers say, we're done with you, I can't see the Broncos going after him.
Yeah, absolutely. And correction from earlier, Broncos had Blake Bortles, Drew, and Brett Rippon at one point. I don't know if they were all active at the same time. Also, Scott pointed out the Broncos activated Brett Rippon when a few teams were sniffing around from him on the practice squad. Definitely do recall that now. I think what I had heard was that the first time the Broncos had set the season with 3 starting quarterbacks, they haven't done it since 2015. So actually like cutting down to the 53.
Yeah.
Yep, the initial 53. So, and that's because Gary Kubiak loved himself some Trevor Siemian so much. So, and I mean, for a 7th-round pick, he proved to be right. Better than John Elway's 1st-round pick in Paxton Lynch by a long shot, unfortunately, in that one. So let's keep it going here. Broncos, we talked on Tiny Moody there. We talked a little bit of the trade there. We talked interior. We talked edge rusher spot. How do you see this edge rusher room working out now that the Broncos have moved on from Malik Reed? Obviously, in preseason, we saw Malik Reed had got a lot of starts out there because they weren't playing Gregory or Chubb. Why would they? Now that Malik Reed is gone, how does that room work out?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, you're going to have probably a 4-man rotation of Bradley Chubb, Randy Gregory, Baron Browning, and Nick Bonito. I mean, Bonito is going to be kind of more of a spot guy, depending on the situation. You don't want him in there on rundowns by any means. That was not pretty in preseason with him and rundowns. But I mean, as a pass rusher, I think he actually was tied for the highest percentage of pass rush attempts, like actually working out, like successful pass rush attempts. He was at like 22% or something like that in the preseason. And given he was going against like 2nd, 3rd, 4th stringers kind of thing, but still he's at least getting it done as a pass rusher. And so that's what you brought him in for as a 2nd-round pick anyway. He'll get some snaps. But Jonathan Cooper, Aaron Patrick's in there more as a special teams guy. I could actually see Jonathan Cooper getting more times where he is an inactive player, where he's a healthy scratch compared to Aaron Patrick, where they're going to want him for special teams. And so, like I said, I think you're going to have that 4-man rotation, and you're going to see a heavy rotation of them all getting on the field.
Yeah, no, definitely possible. And Jonathan Cooper also probably playing a role there. I mean, he's fine. I think there's a chance that he could push Nick Bonito. Nick Bonito obviously has way more tools, but the reason Cooper fell to the 7th round of the draft was the 6th round 2 years ago was because of the heart condition. So a little bit more talented. We obviously saw him last year play well. For your 5th edge rusher, you could do a lot worse
Yep.
than Jonathan Cooper. So very crowded room. And also Aaron Patrick had a solid preseason, but the Broncos are bringing him back as a special teams guy for sure. Daryl Washington coming in talking about the Broncos moving on from Eric Tomlinson, the tight end room. Apparently the Broncos maybe were taking the temperature on the market for Alberto Cuebanam, keeping him in the end. But Daryl Washington Sr. coming in saying the Broncos should bring in O.J. Howard to help the tight end room. O.J. Howard obviously released from the Bills. The thing with O.J. Howard is that he was really talented coming out of Alabama, suffered an Achilles injury, and just has not looked like the same athlete after that Achilles injury. So maybe the Broncos bring in a tight end, maybe they work it out, but it's not the O.J. Howard that was drafted, 19th overall in the 2019 draft. He's just not the same athlete as he was back then.
Yeah, you're right. You and I both loved him coming out of the draft.
Yeah.
And we're kind of hoping that he'd fall to the Broncos, and he obviously didn't quite make it to the Broncos there. I think that was the draft. The Broncos were picking 20th.
They took Garrett Bowles, which
better 27.
We were also
2017 draft. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, he hasn't quite worked out the way you hoped, and he's just not quite the player that you would like to bring in. When we're looking at the back end of him replacing like a guy like Saubert, I could be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that's kind of a throwaway player anyway. I shouldn't say that. That's very mean to me. But yeah, I know I'm being very cruel here today. But like, if you're wanting to raise the floor of that room, I could be okay with that move because he still has some upside and he's still a pretty good run blocker. Like he's not quite the receiving threat that you'd like, but he still can be a pretty decent run blocker.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got Cody W coming in again saying, is Sanders still on free agency? Last I knew, he wasn't on an NFL roster.
I think he's still out there. Obviously you hate to say this, but the thing about the wide receiver position, especially when you get older, is that you lose a lot of your value quickly. So not every single player can be, Larry Fitzgerald playing forever. Just doesn't happen very often. So Sanders probably done in the league. Maybe pick that back end of the wise, but we'll see.
Right. And the hard part is what you would want to offer them is probably a vet minimum because you kind of believe that's going to be their value coming onto this roster. And for a veteran like him, he's going to be going, hey, look what I've done in this league. I deserve a little bit more than that. And there's just a lot of pride that kind of goes into that. And I don't blame the player for trying to get as much as you can. And he might be one of those guys, maybe 2-3 weeks into the season, some team loses a couple of their starters at the wide receiver position. And they're going, hey, Sanders, we need you to come in. He's one of those veterans you can plug in pretty quickly and get something out of him. So he has the time to wait. He has the money that he can wait. So it's not like something he has to hustle and make that kind of decision right now.
Yeah. Nope, absolutely. So got a little bit of time. We'll see what happens. And Zebulon coming in saying, does Sanders retire as a Bronco with a one-day deal? Sanders' time in Denver was fun. I don't think he is Mr. Bronco by any means. What was he here for 4 years? Something like that. It was good 4 years. I don't know if he has the pull or the sway to come back and be one of those guys who retires and has the ceremony and everything as one day with the Broncos. He just wasn't a Bronco lifer. Also didn't end the best in his time in Denver also. So don't think that's on the table. Maybe you do just because of the Peyton Manning run, all the good things, the connection with DT. There's a lot of sentimental stuff there, but on his own merits, I don't think he would reach that threshold for me.
Right. And like I said, he didn't leave Denver on the best of terms. And so I don't know if he would really want to come back to Denver and retire in that sense. If you kind of knew some of the details, I mean, there was that fist fight between him and Cortland Sutton and then I think it was a few games after that against Tennessee where he quit at halftime and just said, trade me, I'm done. That sticks with a team where they're just like, yeah, we don't want you back in our building.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of those guys also that he just would go out there and be like, I don't want to be here either.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun when you're winning, not so much fun when you're losing. There's a lot of players like that in the NFL. Just how it is sometimes. Visionary coming in with a $5 super. Thank you so much, Visionary. Also, he had a comment up here saying, I think, thank you guys. Yeah, here we go. Thank you guys, Broncos country. Let's ride. Love that. Love the let's ride, man. It's I haven't adopted yet to end the podcast. It feels like it's Russell Wilson's thing. I'm not.
Yeah.
He's cooler than me. I know he's a cornball, but he's cooler than me. So I can't do it. I just got to stick with my Go Broncos and my own closing there. But let's keep at it here. A few more surprises here. McTelvin Ajim. Any thoughts on him? Obviously had a great preseason game 3 against the Minnesota Vikings. Had a strip sack, I believe, multiple pressures all around, batted ball. Really struggled against the run, and now has been waived. Any chance he's back? Is he going to be picked up in the waiver wire? Well, what's going on with him?
Oh, I think if they can get him back on the practice squad, they're going to want that. I mean, he's still got value to this team. He knows the defense, knows the other players. If somebody goes down with injury, he's an easy one to stick in there. And you know, the few reps that he got last year, he didn't look lost on the field. Like, he made some decent plays. And so I think if the Broncos can bring him back, they're going to try. Yeah. It's just, that's been the problem again, consistency. Can you trust him to be on the field for any large amount of snaps? Right now, no, because he's just so hot and cold. Even in that Vikings game, like, he had these great explosive plays, and then you'd watch some of them in the run game where he's getting pushed back about 3 or 4 yards.
Yep.
And so you love the explosive plays, but you're kind of going, we need something more on those other snaps where you're not just getting the explosive play. And I don't know what the answer is with him, because, you know, in college, he showed the same thing. And he kind of thought, okay, well, maybe Arkansas just didn't use him very well because they had him in some weird places. They kind of moved him all over that defensive line and had him gain a bunch of weight. And I don't know, it just was kind of weird what Arkansas did with him. Well, then you kind of thought, okay, get him to the NFL, get him in this weight room, get him with NFL coaches. Maybe they'll really maximize that. And he just has stayed in that same place. We haven't seen that level of growth you like to see by year 3. So, you know, I think they'd love to have him back on the practice squad, but if they lose him, I don't think they're going to lose a whole lot of sleep either at this point.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there. Unicorn coming in saying having Browning on the bench as an edge instead of on the field starting in the middle seems like a waste to me, with a smiley face. You appreciate that unicorn extreme coming in here. The edge rushing spot is heavily rotational as it is. So no matter what, even if you have Browning as your starter, he's going to be logging less snaps than that linebacker, but edge rushers are probably like twice as valuable. Just putting a random value on it, but it's almost twice as valuable as the off-ball linebacker. You need a plethora of them. You need to have waves of pass rushers. So I think that Browning at edge, probably, let's say he plays 40% of the edge snaps, probably more valuable there than playing 80% of the off-ball snaps. Stack linebacker. Don't want to make Scott upset. No, the other spot here is I think the Broncos moved Browning because they liked so much what they had in Jonas Griffith already coming on and bringing back Josie Jewell. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm excited to see what Browning, and he looked really good at edge too. If Browning looked lost at edge this season, then we'd definitely be having a conversation about that. Is he getting jerked around too much to where you're halting his development? If anything, I think he looks as good at that position moving forward as he did it off ball last year. He looked pretty good at the stack spot. So excited to see Browning at edge.
Right. Well, and the other thing is you look at moving forward, like, it's easier to replace that off ball linebacker. It's not as easy to replace a good edge player. And if you're looking at Bradley Chubb, with this maybe being his last year with the Broncos, you're trying to find that replacement. Is he already on the roster? Well, it could be Browning. Mm-hmm. He could all of a sudden prove that he can be a starter quality edge player for you, opposite of Randy Gregory. And then you don't have to pay Bradley Chubb all this buku money that the edge players are making these days. Even above average edge players are making really good money right now. And so then you got a little bit more money to pay Draymond Jones, to make sure Russell Wilson is locked in for the long term. And maybe you get a 3rd round comp pick for Bradley Chubb walking out the door. So then you feel better about your draft picks moving forward, since you've lost a lot of them over these last few years. So there's a lot of reasons for this season and beyond to go ahead and try to get Browning at this position. And I think we even talked when he was drafted by the Broncos. I remember saying, I wish they'd actually just play him at edge. Mm-hmm. I hated this whole idea of let's try him at both positions and see how it goes. I hate when they do that in the NFL, especially for rookies. I'm like, their world is swimming. Just give them one responsibility. That's enough in today's NFL. And I really wanted him at edge because I felt like he had that quick twitch ability, the ability to bend around the edge. He's got the long arms. He's got the body build. I just felt like that would be a perfect fit for him in the NFL. And so I'm glad that they're giving him that chance.
Yeah, and we have a super chat coming in here from Michaela Parker. $4.99. Oh, the chat just jumped on me. Sorry, Michaela. There we go. Any good or right tackles that were cut today? if they were cut today, I don't think good is the word I would use for them. Clicking through the names right now over on ESPN, looking for OT. The only name so far that has stood out to me was the likes of LeBraven Clark, which I don't think you really want there. Oh, was Kellen Deesh moved on from? Remember, the weirdest body type of all time, probably couldn't scratch his belly button with his arm length there. God, what a weird body. But looking at the offensive tackles here, nobody's really sticking out. Yasir Durant over at the Patriots, maybe is a name. David Sharp, but he's more of a power guy with the Ravens. Right now, I think the Broncos will probably bring in or put some claims in on some offensive tackle here to push the back end of the roster. Dennis Kelly, another one here. The Broncos didn't bring him in. They brought him in for a workout, right? Dennis Kelly. Then they ended up not going with him. Am I remembering that? Then they ended up going with Billy Turner.
I think you're right. I know that they had interest in Dennis Kelly for sure.
Yeah.
When that whole free agency was kicking off. And so, yeah, he wouldn't be one that I'd be too surprised if the Broncos decided, hey, Cameron Fleming, we're not liking him as our backup to the backup. I mean, obviously, Calvin Anderson's going to be your swing tackle at this point, but you kind of like to have another option as well that you trust. And Fleming, I thought he did pretty good in this last game, but the other two, he was getting burned pretty bad.
Yep. Not very good. Reason he was out there as late as he was. Manuel coming in saying, how do you guys feel about the cornerback depth? Sucks that Ojimita hasn't progressed more. That and Bassie didn't look good either. Probably on the defense, my biggest concern right now is the depth of the cornerback position, only rivaled by the quality up top in the interior defensive line after your top two. I guess that's still depth, but more of a starter there than hopefully your first boundary cornerback, because that becomes an issue if you have injuries. Your third interior defensive lineman is going to get play. So cornerback depth is definitely a concern. That's the position that I've heard, and it makes sense that the Broncos are probably going to be the most aggressive, looking to add somebody through the waiver wire or after this initial 53-man roster. So definitely cornerback, I would say, is far from settled. Look for the Broncos to make a move there.
Right. Well, and George Paton, he loves his corners.
Yeah.
I mean, name a team that loved corners more over the last 10 years than the Minnesota Vikings. You can't. And so you're right. There's no way that they feel comfortable with what they have on this roster right now. And I think there's some decent names that have hit the market. I saw one earlier. Someone who kept mentioning Iowa cornerback Josh Jackson. Yeah, there we go from Jelly. You know more about him than I do, obviously being from there. And he was a pretty high draft pick there coming out of Iowa. Everybody kind of liked him there. And I'm sure George Paton knows him well because you're scouting your enemy, the Packers. They saw him there for quite a few years. So there's some names out there. There's actually some decent cornerbacks that I think have hit the market that the Broncos would feel pretty comfortable with.
Yeah, Josh Jackson, University of Iowa, played a lot of off coverage for the Hawkeyes. They never really had a lot of different coverages that could expose him and kind of show what his versatility was. Man, press man, et cetera, et cetera. His issue with me has been tackling physicality. He's got more of a wiry build and just never really took off there. A lot of ball skills at Iowa, had like a crazy amount of pick sixes, but again, I would say been a lowercase bust so far. We had Visionary. Hello, Visionary. Thanks again for the $5. We appreciate you. So we'll see how it plays out. I love Josh Jackson because, he had a fun season with the Hawkeyes, but I try to put away that Hawkeye fandom when it comes to the Broncos. So when I say Josie Jewell's a good linebacker, it's not because my Iowa bias. He's good.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. But definitely Broncos looking at cornerback. I'm sure they will put in multiple waiver claims in that position. If not, cornerback to me, let me put it this way. I guess I'll just say it first. I think if there's any position on the Broncos where they would consider giving up draft capital to bring in a player, I think it's cornerback. I think that's the spot where they would consider doing that. Now, they're not going to give up one of their thirds for a cornerback. They need those picks probably to trade down and get more draft capital. But right now, I think that cornerback's the one position where I could see them being even more aggressive to the point of giving up draft capital.
Yeah, and we have another name coming from Cody W here saying Xavier Rhodes is still out there, though he is older. He's fallen off a cliff. He went from looking like top 10 cornerback, possibly there for a little bit for like a year or two. And then all of a sudden, boom, he was just like one of the worst starting cornerbacks in football. So probably not a name I'd look at too hard. But again, we're talking about back end guys, and there's a reason that they're on the market.
Yep. No, absolutely. We'll see how it plays out. So, any surprise guys that made the team for you, Carl? I'll throw out some names here. Matt Henningsen ended up making it still. A 6th-round pick. Wisconsin kind of came on late. Interesting to see him there. Obviously, we talked a little Aaron Patrick at the outside linebacker spot. Sang Bassey, probably my biggest surprise, making it still. And then Broncos keeping 4 linebackers, Justin Strnad, safe. Any thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah, you're right. Bassey is probably the one that really sticks out because he didn't look all that great in preseason, and he's coming off of injury. There's just a lot of things going against him other than him being experienced with the team. Yeah. And so he's probably the 53 man for me right now on this roster. And like I said, they're going to be looking at cornerback really hard. He's going to be the guy that's probably most likely replaced out of that room. And so I have my doubts that he would be there. If we're talking an opening day roster, Bassey is probably not on that roster. But right now he is. So that's why it is a little bit of a surprise. I agree. Matt Henningsen, I mean, I think they maybe could have thought, hey, we can get him through to the practice squad. I thought he's looked pretty darn good in preseason to me. He's been kind of one of the few that's held his own in the run game a little bit. I mean, he's not been perfect by any means. I mean, he still is a rookie, but I'm glad to see him make the roster because I think he has something. I think here in a couple of years, he could be a quality player for the Broncos in that rotation for the defensive line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense to me. So guys, we're gonna have to start wrapping up here. We got Jelly coming in here with some names too. Mario Goodrich, Tariq Castro-Fields, and Jared Davis. You had me with the first two. I think Mario Goodrich and Tariq Castro-Fields make sense. Jared Davis, man, it's another one of those players where just doesn't have it from the neck up, running into the wrong lanes, getting his own players out of position because he's running into them. Just, you can't trust him out there. So there's a reason he's been on as many teams as he has. Good athlete, but if you can't play from the neck up at the linebacker position, not going to have it. There are 4 positions really where you have to have the intelligence. I would say that you have to have the intelligence plus the tools for the quarterback, but 3 positions, I guess I'll go with, where intelligence, the above the neck up, and the awareness matters more than anything. Safety, linebacker, center. And you can have all the athleticism in the world, but if you're out of position or don't know what you're doing at those spots, you're going to be bad at football. And Jared Davis has been obviously better than me. I'm just sitting here on a chair, some Pacific Northwest tweener out here. But Jared Davis, not been very good. Probably not somebody that you should be interested in.
Yep. I'm with you there. I do like those first 2 names. If the Broncos brought him in, I would not fight that one bit. So I appreciate you putting all these different names out there for us, Jelly, because it is kind of neat just to see all these possibilities. And there are going to be some decent players that make some rosters still that end up being big time contributors this year.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us today. I don't really think of any other things to discuss. Obviously, I think the biggest news of the day is Malik Reed being moved on from. Broncos giving up a 7th-round pick. The 7th-round pick that belonged to the Minnesota Vikings because the Broncos got it in the Stephen Weatherly trade last season. Broncos don't have their own 7th because they gave it up to the 49ers for the Jonas Griffith trade. Those back-end picks, man, who knows who belongs to. You have to look it up, keep like drawing strings like Charlie Day, trying to figure out where the mail's coming from. And It's Always Sunny. But Broncos sending a 7th-round pick and Malik Reed getting a 6th-round pick back from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Other than that, the original 53 is set, and we're going to see how it all plays out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And we keep building up to this game. And we're 13 days away from the Broncos kicking off in Seattle, week 1. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So, Carl, any final thoughts before we wrap it on up here?
No, I'm excited about this roster. I think Chad put in the heading, do you think this is a Super Bowl type roster? I think it's right on that edge. I think they're missing maybe a couple pieces that you'd really like to be able to see. You still don't know quite with that right tackle. Billy Turner hasn't taken any snaps yet. He's been injured most of the offseason. Can he live up to what you need? But at the same time, I still love a lot of these weapons. Even with Dulcich going down, obviously Tim Patrick going down, you still really do, like I said, you feel good about it. You like these starters. I think it's a little thin on the back end of some of these positions that if there's a couple injuries, I'm going to be sitting there saying, crap, we're in trouble. But if the starters can stay healthy, this could be a really special team.
Should be a good year. Should be competitive football. Broncos have a realistic shot to go all the way. Want to see what it looks like first, but either way, going to be a lot of fun this season. Appreciate everyone joining us today. I'll be live again tomorrow for Scott's Forging the Falcons channel tomorrow morning, and it'll be Scott and I tonight, or tomorrow night for Mile High Insiders as Luke recovers from a surgery. He's doing okay, but if you want to send him, good thoughts, good vibes over on Twitter, you can. But we appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys are following Carl and myself on Twitter. Carl is at Carl Dumler MHH. I am at Nick Kendall MHH. Also, make sure you're following us while you're over on Twitter at BTB Football Pod, Building the Broncos Football Pod, easy to remember, as well as at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you're joining us on Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as the ticker says underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Click the bell icon so that way you know when we go live. Sometimes a few minutes late, some people maybe a few more minutes late than others, but that way if you click that bell notification, you won't be waiting around. When are they going to go live? They said 6 o'clock Mountain Time. You'll know when they go live. And back-to-back supers. I guess the show must go on. Visionary coming in again, $5 saying, I think the secondary will be okay with a good pass rush and no secondary injuries. Chubb career revived thanks to Gregory. Definitely possible. The thing is, you can't really depend on no injuries. Injuries happen. I mentioned it earlier. In his career to date, Ronald Darby has had one of his 6 years in the league so far where he has not missed time. That's not good. You should probably bank that you're going to miss time or that Ronald Darby is going to miss some time. After that, it's questionable. I mean, Quan Williams, you like him at that cornerback spot or the nickel spot, but he's also older. I think 31 years old. Yep. Maybe could be reaching a downward turn. So definitely some concerns there. But I do agree with you. It's not just the Chubb stuff here. I don't think it's just Gregory being there, although that does help. But I'm excited about Browning, excited about Benito as a pass rusher, DJ Jones and whatnot, healthy at the linebacker spot. I think the Broncos' run defense, in theory, should be better this season, allowing yourself to have better pass rush opportunities and having an offense that's competent on the other side should help them as well. So we'll see what happens there. And Carl, take Kenneth here.
Yeah, we got Kenneth coming in saying, with Kendall Hinton gone, what are we going to do about our fourth string quarterback? LOL. Ooh, who could play quarterback?
Like Nathaniel Hackett, baby.
Yeah. There you go.
Just remember the content.
Remember, they wouldn't allow coaches to come in and play.
That's right.
They wouldn't.
That was because of the sick bug, though, because they didn't want to punish. They were kind of trying to punish them. Maybe they would just for the content in this case.
I remember, who was it? Who threw it to Cortland Sutton, or was it Cortland Sutton that threw a touchdown pass?
Cortland Sutton, beautiful throw.
Yep. Okay, that would be the guy. That would be the one to be the next quarterback for you.
Yep. Be a lot of fun, although then you're losing. You're probably your number one wide receiver. But I digress. Hey, man, maybe Brandon McManus. Just here for the content. Paul also saying, thank you, OGs. Thank you, Paul. Have a good one. Sanders to Sutton. Sutton threw a beautiful touchdown pass in Minnesota. I remember that game. I don't remember who he threw it to, but it was gorgeous. So maybe it was Sutton's to Sanders. I don't know. I don't remember. But either way, let's have some more of that this year. Let's have some fun. Actually, let Russell throw all the touchdowns. We actually have a quarterback now. As soon as I said, I'm like, nah. And Ben said he took the game to Sanders threw a touchdown to Sutton in Arizona. Took his whole family. Awesome, man. Good memories. Maybe that was the butt kicking game in mid-October a few years ago when the Von Miller guaranteed that they were going to win and put on a show on Thursday Night Football, I think it was. So anyway, I digress. You guys have a great night. We're going to get on out of here. Make sure you're choosing kindness and choosing compassion. Until next time, go Broncos.